the people disagree with what the consultants say, it wouldn't really matter because they don't have the right to vote off these consultants because they weren't chosen by the people in the first place. So so basically the voices of these people would matter anyway, because the people know that these politicians will be bought by the fancy words of these consultants and their qualifications. What happens then is that the people will feel disengaged with the government and they will lose trust in the people that they vote, in the politicians that they initially believed in, because their voices are not being properly represented. So if they didn't vote or select these consultants, why should they have the right to decide? Yes.
One question. Do you trust in your politician that you voted in?
Yes, of course. So if you trust them, it doesn't mean that just because you trust them doesn't mean that these politicians have the right to choose whoever else they want to be involved in the lawmaking process. They should be the ones in charge of it. So if they choose, okay, maybe they could choose, they could simply choose their own family members to be involved, to be the consultants. Is that right? That's not right, So now moving on, basically, if they didn't vote or select these consultants, why should they lose the right to decide the fate of these people? There's no democracy in this. So if there's no democracy, there's no point in the whole voting system anyway. It's going to be useless. And with that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Prime Minister. Up next, I would like to invite the Leader of Opposition.
Hi, am I audible?
Leader of Opposition, Mr. Khalish, to present your arguments. Please welcome.
It's actually Kailish, but I do appreciate the Arabic intonation of it. I really like it. All right, just give me a moment, yeah? All right. So, can you share the timer here so that it doesn't, I won't get distracted during the debate?
Okay. Sorry, you asked me to share the timer?
Yes.
Per my instruction, I will only share the timer only during POI sessions. Only the crucial times.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
All right. In that case, timer. Okay. All right. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The problem is the lawmaking has been an elite standpoint that is detached from the reality, especially this nuanced problems that comes in terms of sentencings, the punitive nature, and the discriminatory points. If hiring consultants who are capable, who are reliable, why this government is being bombarded with unrealistic statements that are coming from Prime Minister? First of all, this is how I'm going to structure. Number one, let me give you some rebuttal and actually decimate the case of Prime Minister within its stepping stone. Number one, first of all, Prime Minister comes in as a weird mechanization of who these consultants are. So apparently these consultants are qualified but not experienced. In which will that is actually fair towards us? Because if you tell these people are qualified, they have to come with some form of experiences, right? They have to know some kind of criminal justice system and the procedural justice system that happens in the reality, right? How is that even fair to us? Second, we need to understand first of all, the internal agenda analysis that comes from them, right? Why it's actually not true at all. One, because politicians have more agenda, they have political agenda. There's a political belief that they have to and that they have to stamp. Second, these consultants are mere people who are just know their field. These people who have some kind of, level of knowledge of their field. They understand their input onto these reasons why lawmaking should be going in a different tangent, a tangent that exactly appreciate people, that make sure that these life and death decisions are not actually a bigger problem. Number two, why we believe that this, and then Prime Minister say that this does not reflect the populace. Number one, you actually voted these people in. which means you trust their decisions on actually asking certain people around to make sure that this lawmaking process is going to be fine. It's going to be good. It's going to be for the people. Two, even if it's in a weird state, right? It's actually to perpetuate their own political standing. Fine, because number one, there's a reason why you vote these people because they reflect your political stance. Also, we are okay with that. And then there's also this weird statement. It doesn't matter. This is prime minister's only way. It doesn't matter whatever this consultants say. If it doesn't matter, why we're having this debate again and again? So, few pieces of framing the prime minister didn't say. Number one, how are we going to actually hire consultants for the lawmaking processes? A, we're telling it involves brainstorming, consolidating, and making sure your MP knows about your reasonings and go to the champion it in the parliament. B, this is where the consultants are going to be well-established, legitimate people who are capable to ensure they understand the complexities of the problems that we are facing in nation right now. And then we're telling there's a lack of sufficient amount of perspective that happened in the status quo of lawmaking. The passing the law without any form of executive nuances, what it looks like. It looks like probably during COVID, you can actually withdraw your EPF money with no reasoning towards what your future is going to look like. So politicians are being surface level, and this is the problem we are facing, where they do not understand the reality of this crime, the reality of this punitive measurement, but rather than being a wishy-washy, a surface statistical of lawmaking, e.g., like, okay, the problems of being overly punitive to suicide and drug-related problems. This is where we need to hire consultants that need to be part of a diverse statement of like the diverse field of psychology or social service. The mechanism be as this panel that we are going to hire are going to be diverse in their expertise and fail to use this opfia to utilize these people in the first place. The lawmaking will be twofold, right? In reality, one, sure, government said this is going to be slow, but here it is. Lawmaking is A, we need to protect the stakeholders that needed the protection. B, we are putting these criminals in jails. It's a life and death situation. If we do not cover all these bases, these people are going to be victimized for the entire years of their lives. They're going to have a social reactionary they're not going to get job and all those things. This is the reason why we need to make sure we have people who actually knows what they're talking about to be a part of this lawmaking processes, to actually consult to this parliament, to this MP, saying that here's the problem, we need to solve it, and this is why this tangent of reality is necessary. Then, what is the status quo of lawmaking in Malaysia? We already said it's a elite perspective of men where the ground problems have not been solved. The elitism in politicians cause the ignorance on what we actually need to solve this problem in the first place. You have men writing women autonomy laws. You have able people talking about, differently abled laws. You have the majority talking about the minority problems. The outdated disability, disability or different ability laws and accommodation. We have given you the problems. Here's how the hiring consultant will actually solve the problem. One, we're going to tell this going to have a better insight and knowledge transfer towards the politician. Why we're saying that? Number one, we're telling politicians are humans who have restricted knowledge. You have these consultants who have diverse knowledge. Means you now actually have some form of reality check on what these laws actually mean. This is not going to be a wishy-washy statement, right? Let's do this, let's do that, let's put 10 years for this, let's actually let's just criminalize all these drugs. It's going to be more nuanced. It's going to understand the addiction, probably, if you're a psychology major. It's going to be if you're a social science major, you're going to talk about the reality of abuse, the reality of abandonment, all those things. They're going to be taken into this punitive measures of court system. B, we're going to tell there's a better implementation of these laws. We're telling the curative laws it's never been a problem in the first place. It's status quo. It has always been the implementation. Let me give a very surface level example. For example, if there's a no smoking signs everywhere in restaurant and everything, unfortunately, people are still smoking, right? What it shows, there's an executive problem. The people are, no matter what, it still happens. And if you hire people who understand the bigger picture of smoking addiction, you will try to curate laws that are easy to execute it. Then you're going to see that fair, this is what's going to happen. We need to ensure that this is what's going to happen. We need to make sure an actual law that actually going to make sense. That actually going to make it sure before what? Yeah.
Okay. What is the incentive for consultant to actually tell the politician what are the real voices or the real opinion of the people?
So you're telling me that this apparently these politicians who are elitists not going to know the entire populace, but you do not believe that these consultants would have zero out of touch reality. I think that's actually very weird analogy for you to make in the first place. This will cause and coming back that this will actually cause a societal change. a social change, now you'll have law amendments that are qualitative towards the nation. So the impact with ourselves is fourfold. Number one, we're telling a nation going to have a strong social stability. Number two, we're going to tell you have people who have some form of ethical and morality and going to get some sense of it. We're going to have people who understands it. And three, now we can get to the root of the problem and actually curate laws towards it. And four, now you have some form of trust in these people that you elected, because these people are not going to be just wishy-washy. These people are going to talk about something that actually these consultants know about it. Opposition wins this case within my speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I would like to welcome the Deputy Prime Minister from the government team, Mr. Woo Chun Kiat, to continue proposing the motion. Please welcome.
The fact that someone is a professional lawyer that has a PhD from Cambridge and have a 10 years experience of practicing law doesn't mean that that person has ground experience and know what the people are facing. And this is the reason why we can expect elite consultant, they don't understand the need of people of withdrawing ETF money during COVID, like what the government opposition team is trying to say. We think that politician has a better reflect of what the people actually needs, simply because they are voted in by the people and they need to frequently face the people on the ground. They need to frequently serve the people in their constituency, and they know what they really need, right? So I will start my speech in a few rebuttals and then proceed into my argument. Okay, so first of all, clarification. We think that the fact that we vote a politician in simply means that we trust the politician and we trust the ideology of the politician. It doesn't mean we believe, or it doesn't mean that we trust the people around the politician. So let's say a person let's say Najib is voted in as a prime minister, right? It doesn't mean that people who vote Najib in trust that Joe Low as a close friend of Najib. Just trust Joe Low as a close friend of Najib. It simply means that people trust Najib, right? So when people around position step inside, this is the time when things happen. And this is the reason why, of course, the appointment of politician, consultant and politician in the first place, regardless of what their role. We understand that, yes, what the opposition say, they can involve in brainstorm, they have qualification and so on. This simply gives them overarching power, which give them a certain high level of influence in the lawmaking process, which in exchange of it means that there is a reduced influence of opinions from the people on the ground, which are represented by the politician or represented by the politician. And the second thing is this. The most of the argument coming from the opposition team basically centered around the fact that politicians are elitists, and then and consultants know what problem is with the law. But if we don't think that politicians are necessary elitists, it is consultant that is necessary elitist because you require them to have high qualification pointed to begin with. Whereas politicians, they can come from anyone. They can just be an ordinary citizen being voted in because they are supported in an election, right? The question of which side are more elitist, we think that for sure consultant is more elitist to begin with. Why is this so? So we think that a consultant necessarily needs to be elitist or more likely come from a high income family, able to sponsor them for a very high level of education, especially through overseas, or maybe sorry, my line is shorty. Okay. So in an overseas education and so on, in order for them to be qualified enough to be elected. Slightly than not, this kind of people often host ideology that does not reflect the citizen. This go with my example that I give just now. For example, like those elites consultants would more likely don't understand what people are facing, especially during hard times. For example, like COVID, right? This will have a great influence in a lawmaking process in different ways. For example, first of all, they will create a system which benefits elite bankers, financial planners, instead of taking care about people on the ground. Second of all, they might force the government to remove welfare system simply because they don't need it, and simply because the background of them growing up means that they are already growing up in elite family and they have personal sentiment thinking that welfare system is not needed because they don't need it throughout their life, right? So for this reason, it is we are inclined to believe that consultant is more elitist. But the is why politicians are better than politicians. How things balance incentive, right? Because first of all, they are voted in, voted in the parliament or basically into the government through an election. So they have a role and a responsibility as an incentive to reflect what the people actually want. So if they are doing something against the people, they are afraid of simply being voted out. People, their voters will feel that they are betrayed because they do not reflect the ideology, and as a result of this, they will most likely lose the election. Second of all, politicians also face public scrutiny in the parliament, especially like everything that they say is being live streamed. In this, check whether the politicians are performing well or not. This consulting perform differently. They just try to change the mind of politicians. We don't think it's a good way of creating a law because it simply doesn't reflect what the people need. Politicians also have the incentive to further their career, to be promoted to a higher stage, for example, like prime minister or deputy prime minister or minister, which means that they are more likely or not than not to actually gain the support from people as much as possible to reflect what their views, what their needs. Okay. I think my second argument, right? This entire system of allowing politicians. Okay, it's not clear. Is that true? Okay. Anyway, we think that this entire system of allowing politicians to create law instead actually could ensure the legitimacy of law, right? Because the whole idea of why there is a law and why people actually buy into it or adhere to the law begin with is because people believe that the law actually represents them, and the law is actually there because most people or the majority of the country really need it. If they feel that it is a consultant that has an influence, right? The bad effect of the first speaker that say it's going to come up, for example, a refusal to adhere to the law, backlash, riot, and so on. So in worst case scenario where the politicians are not perfect and they create imperfect law, we think that even if the law is wrongful, it is still justified. Why is that so? Because we think that politicians are being voted in by the majority of people in that country, which means that if it is a wrong decision, it is a collective wrong decision. So if there is a collective suffer due to a collective wrong decision, we think that it is justified in the first place, right? It's the comparative outside is if there is a consultant having an over the law making process, it means that people is going to suffer if the consultant is making any law that does not reflect the needs of the people. But the difference here is that collective suffer of the people because of that personal decision. It's not because of the entire people fault of voting a politician for one politician, and that if the law is more effective, if the law is more perfect in opposition's favor, simply because it's not lead-centric, simply because it is not democratically not created by what democratically concerned, it should not be there in the first place. We prefer a law that actually represents everyone versus a law that just represents new consultant that's on the law itself. Or I think influence on the law itself. With all of this, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister. Up next, I would like to invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition, Ms. Shashita, to present your arguments. Please welcome.
Yeah, give me a minute. Okay, before I start, is my line clear?
Sure, it's audible. Yeah.
All right, okay. All right, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I think government has come into this debate without properly explaining to us as to why is it necessarily better to not hire consultants in the lawmaking process instead of just criminalizing or tend to point out the flaws in a lot of how these consultants will like badly or differ this law making process first place? I think firstly, we'll also there are some rebuttals, right? Government came up very early on and talked about how these consultants are not voted in, and oftentimes they have different ideologies with the people who have voted in, and therefore swayed the lawmaking process in the first place. I think first thing to understand that my LO has already explained to you the mechanization of the hiring process. So oftentimes those in legislative power are the ones who will include these consultants in the process of like curating these laws in the first place. Meaning that oftentimes the people who have voted these politicians who are in sync with their own ideology will hire these consultants who are in the same ideology as well. And where does diversity come into all this, right? They say that within the perimeter of the ideology, there is some form of different perspectives and diverse opinions of expertise that comes into discussion within this perimeter in itself. And we think this is much better and it's an exclusive benefit only opposition is able to offer in today's debate. The benefit of this looks like curating policies with better insight, with better nuances. Why is this so? This is where we had to study the quality of politicians that already exist in the scope. A lot of the time, there is no minimum or maximum educational qualification for a lot of politicians, meaning that a lot of times politicians are caught into curating laws that they have no expertise in. Someone who has an expertise in like maybe like in the medical field, who's a politician, will probably like can raise a dialogue or can probably start a discussion of law of making decisions in economics and things like that. Because you have to create problems that are exclusive to like the places that you are governing in. And we say that this is exactly the problem as to how consultants actually come into the picture, where they start the first conversation or they start the first instance of saying, hey, this is a problem and we should change that or make a better law. We gave you like 3 arguments as to why this is much better. Number one, you get the insight and knowledge transfer. You get to see that you get to implement laws that are much better at solving the problem, because this is what laws are supposed to do. When you have a problem of an excessive amount of smokers in social public or in like a public setting, and people are getting a bad example from it, and it's really not good, or how it socially impacts the environment, or socially impacts the environment of the nation. I think this is where like most experts will come in and say, you know what, we need better enforcement. We need to implement this law better and making sure, what, smoking is an addiction. You can't fix this problem overnight by just banning smokers. Let's create first a smoking zone for people to actually go and smoke. So that way you solve the problem of not seeing smokers in restaurants and public places. At the same time, we're actually giving them understanding that the government actually understands the problem of smoking in the first place. This is an example that's very crucial to this debate, because this is a problem that is so nuanced. It can only be solved if you have proper understanding of it, which government cannot contest to. Now, what's the impact, right? When we give better quality of laws and we implement these policies in a much better fashion, the nation looks like a very stable and high quality population, meaning that oftentimes these are the nations that will have a quality of population that have better ethics, better morals. Why? Because these laws will automatically implement somehow understanding these people, so understand why these people are criminalized or decriminalized. For example, the passing of law to decriminalize drug abuse or drug usage shows that it's actually a mental health sign for you to abuse drugs in the first place. Shows that it shines a light as to how many people actually go on and read about these cases and read about the victims of these cases to understand this is why it should be criminalized. Meaning, people will become more sensitive. The population of the nation, you're building a nation that is more ethically and morally inclined for understanding people's problem and not just straight away criminalizing them. Right? Number two, a lot of the times, politicians are the ones who have a greater bigger agenda because they have a lot of incentives to sustain their power. This goes against like, the entire case of government when they talk about the control will sway the lawmaking process. Understand that firstly, who has the bigger incentives to maintain their power? It's the politicians. Number two, who has the power to actually convince people that they are credible? It's the politicians. They have a much bigger agenda to sway the lawmaking process, to make laws just to like fulfill the manifesto and do good for the people, and not just solve ground root or the grass level problems. This is where when consultants come in, there's a form of check and balance. When you're able to give the consultant the power to make the decision-making process, oftentimes it is them telling you this will work, this will not work. Number two, economically, can we
Joanne?
implement this law? Thirdly, what is the cost of actually implementing this law, and issue, people follow it? What is the enforcement cost of it? What is the economic consequence of it? Is it viable to do it now, or shall we wait till the next economic year starts? This is usually the kind of conversations consultants can bring up, because oftentimes products are surrounded by a bunch of yes men. Yes, sir. Yes, madam. This will work. And consultants are the ones who are able to be devil's advocates to ensure that it's a counterfactual to a lot of proposals that are being made to ensure the best outcome does come out of it. Now, what does the impact look like? It looks like a better nation building. This looks like a better accountability for politicians to have a much better curation of laws to ensure that we build a nation that serves not just the elite but also the bottom. A quick POI for one.
POI. Okay, isn't the reason why politician is elected in the first place is because people support their manifesto and political agenda?
Yeah, thanks. Oftentimes, when you support a manifesto, the way that you have and the way that you have thought about it and the way that you have implemented it is not sufficient. For example, if you are part of a constituency that unfortunately can't support the technological advancements that you have promised in your manifesto, and it takes a long time to do that, like out of the 5-year term, I think it's much better, because if you give a very bad technology that can crash, or if it's a technology that doesn't serve the people who require it the most, or it's going to the wrong stakeholder, or it's costing the state too much money, that's taking away other benefits, I think the politicians should listen to consultants and tell them that this is a much better way of choosing policy. And I think people who have voted this party will actually understand the benefits of a more wholesome or holistic approach to handle the state than to give them everything in just one promise, like manifesto, and we think that is a much worse case. And it will happen in the opposite with consultants in the first place. This will also reduce the ability to make this a political tool, because they don't have to focus on convincing people to vote for them. So for all those reasons, side with opposition.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Deputy Leader of Opposition. Moving on, I would like to call upon the Government Whip, Ms. Jia Chi, to continue proposing the motion on behalf of the government team. Please welcome.
Yes, thank you. I'm Miss Jashi. Not Lister. All right. POI in the chat, please. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. In a world where whoever that the people choose as their representatives don't accurately represent what the people want, are not the main people in making all of this decision, is where democracy is dead. And where the democracy is dead on our side, where people don't get accurately represented. Two major clash points in this debate today. First, on the principle level, and second is the fact that if politicians are capable enough for them to make a decision, which is basically the chunk of expertise arguments coming from side opposition. First, on the principle level, we tell you that on a principle level, when people choose whoever that they want to get into this position, it has to be that person who actively decide the fate of their life. We prove this on 2 levels. First, is that for the fact that when these politicians make good decisions, this is where people will buy into this particular policy and be even more engaged in the democratic system themselves, because they know that whatever decision that they make, whatever vote that they cast in the ballot box, would ultimately always translate to whatever that they have in their life. Second, we prove to you, in a world when these politicians actually make bad decisions, this is where people would still be engaged with them. They would not really blame the government that much, because they know that this is whatever that they have consent towards. And the fact that if they are really that dissatisfied with the government, they are still capable to vote the government out of the office. What we want is that for people to feel trusted, for people to trust the entire democratic system as a whole, for them to be engaged with the entire democratic system at the end of the day. The only response that we get for them is the fact that these people, since that they vote these particular politicians in favor into the parliament, therefore they also consent to them asking people around them to help them. I think this is a very extremely convenient way for them to frame this thing. What we tell you is that the simple analogy would be this: if I am chosen to be the president of the club, this doesn't really justify me to choose whoever that I want to be the secretary, whoever that I want to be the rest of the team that make the decision that would dictate the life of the people on the ground, right? This is just absurd. Second, even if you don't buy into our first argument, the first response, we tell you that in democratic process, it is only stated that we consent for these politicians, this particular politician, to be in power. The only thing that we consent towards is for this particular politician to dictate our fate, not to let others that they chose to dictate their fate. I think that Chunde give a very good explanation example into saying that because I chose Najib to be in power doesn't mean that I consent to the friends around him to dictate the life of me. The simple reason to that is that I chose this person because of their mentality. I like their ideology. I trust them into making good decisions because I know what are the things that they prioritize. But I don't necessarily trust the people around them because I don't understand them. I don't know
Fine.
what their priority is. I don't really know what are their prioritization. That means that the entire democracy is dead on your side in a world where they actively let others who are not being chosen, who are not trusted by the people to be in power and dictate their fate. We tell you that even if this particular consultant is able to decide precisely what they want, we think that at the end of the day, this entire parliament is still out of the control of the people on the ground. This is where Atika told you that people will get disengaged, right? Because their voice are not represented at the end of the day. They don't feel the security, even though that it is precisely what they want. The check and balance is not ticking. It's not that, which means which means that the people don't feel that they can decide what the government wants. But second, it's the fact that you will create a bad political atmosphere at the end of the day because check and balance is just simply not there, and people just generally don't feel engaged with the government anymore. This is why people don't go to the ballot box anymore. The second thing is the fact that when these people make wrong decisions, people still have some form of security. I mean, if this particular politician that they voted inside make the wrong decision, they would still feel engaged with it because they consent towards the decision. That means that they still have a form of security. That is where democracy is still alive on our side because you create a good political atmosphere. The most that you get is that people would vote them out of the office and get someone who is better at the end of the day. In conclusion, what we want to show you is that we are perfectly what we want to show you is that democracy is the most important thing in this debate today. That is to say that only the people that are voted in by people should be the one who dictate our fate, not by some random people who are chosen by this person, even though that person is who we trust to dictate our fate. The second idea is on the idea of like how politicians are capable of making a decision, right? The only thing that they told us is about these politicians are going to be elite. But we tell you that in a world when this consultant are chosen, the elitist idea is most likely going to be more on their side because it is those elitists that are able to afford such qualification at the end of the day. I want to be very clear on the comparison of both sides. On the politician side, we tell you first, it is extremely exertive for them to say that these politicians are not qualified at the end of the day because we tell you the politicians can still be qualified. And we think that when these politicians are being qualified, that just proves an extra advantage for them to be able to let people to buy into that and to vote them at the end of the day, which means that politicians can still be qualified at the end of the day. That is simply exertion from their side. The second thing is that we tell you that it is not the most important thing, right? Because we just want people, as soon as the politicians know what the people want, that democracy is ticking, this is what that really matters into the debate. Because these politicians, even if they're not qualified, they will still understand what the people want. They are the one who listen to the voices of the people. They are the one who are proximate to the people, who understand them, are more incentivized to listen to what the people want. A good analogy would be like how China, the best decision for how China responds
POI
towards
before one.
COVID-19, right? They decided that the best way for them to deal with COVID-19 is to have a complete lockdown. It is surely effective. The problem with it is that this is not what the people wanted. And that is why a lot of people in China are suffering from people not being able to put food on the table, losing their occupation, etc. But this is not happening in Malaysia because we have democracy ticking right now. Even though the politicians know that the best way to deal with COVID-19 is to lock down the entire city, but the politician never really does it but make some compromisation along the way because they know that people still care about putting food on the table, which means the only thing that we need politicians to do is to actually understand what the people want and to make good decisions and compromisation along the way. Third, is the fact that we're not against the entire thing of expertise, right? The only thing that they talk about is they need expertise into the system. But we tell you that we still have this kind of expertise professionals externally, right? We have professors in the university who are constantly giving comments or constantly giving their ideas into the government, right? Which means the exercise is still alive on our side of the world. We are fine with that. The only problem that we have is the fact that why would this entire politician need to work internally? And this is something that they never really proven to us. We tell you that if the entire decision is good, this politician could still be in there and to listen to this decision and make the entire and make this decision based on what the people wanted. It has to be the people vote the side where democracy is alive and vote the side where this politicians vote the side where this expertise still exists on our side in terms of working externally.
Okay, thank you, Miss Government Whip. Moving on, I would like to invite the opposition whip, Miss Maisara, to present your arguments. Please welcome.
Okay, am I audible?
You're actually echoing. So
Oh, sorry.
can you try again? Okay, now it's
okay.
good.
Oh, okay, nice. Okay, give me a second to set up my timer. Okay, so I'll be taking one POI, and with that, I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. So to summarize the debate, I need to address what is the winning condition in order to make sure that opposition wins. And that is, what is the best way to create a government that will protect all stakeholders? Is it people who are easily taken advantage of within a democracy by people who can appeal to their fears, to their emotions? Or is it experts who can fact check the politicians who are making decisions that may not have the vulnerable stakeholders in mind? So I will go through several clashes in this debate. First of all, the efficiency of the voices. Opposition talks about how the people don't have a voice, that there is no democracy. However, in status quo, we do have the government forcing people to do things that they may not like. For example, when we had COVID, we had policies where we encourage people to stay at home, to mask up, and people who are anti-maskers are so unwilling to do that. Do you really want people who have these perspectives and these abilities, these opinions to influence the politicians that they're going to be able to vote in? You know, these are like the medical consultants that we had back in the lockdown, like were able basically like set up all of these metrics to ensure that they stay at home, but because all of these people refuse to mask up, refuse to stay at home, we had to have a lockdown like several times. Do you really want these people to ensure that these politicians enter the government? Yes. Yes.
If expertise is what you care, we tell them that we can still have the expertise comment out externally out of the government. Why is that a must for this consultant to work internally into the government itself?
Okay, so the reason we need expertise is because these are people who are educated. Politicians are people who can only try and promise things to their people, but whether they're able to fulfill them is another story. You often hear about politicians who are unable to fulfill these promises. But if you have experts who know the means and the resources it will take to be able to fulfill these manifestos that they have, there is a higher likelihood on our side that they're able to fulfill these manifestos, and in turn increase the sense of trust that the people will have in these politicians and as well as the consultants. Secondly, the clash about expertise. Opposition had a very wishy-washy mechanization, like characterization of these consultants, saying that they're basically like these evil advisors who have these agendas that are going to manipulate people with these technical terms. However, we tell you that these are people who have gone through this process of certification. They have proof to show that they are qualified to be able to express their perspective and express their knowledge and fact check whenever these politicians get their facts wrong. To say that they don't know what they're talking about, it just doesn't happen in status quo. When we have medical experts who have worked with people in disability, they are able to update the disability laws that have been outdated for over a decade now. When we have people who are experts in social justice, in women's rights, to be able to consult with these politicians that these people voted in, we are able to improve the lives of women. We are able to minimize sexual harassment cases that happen. When we have mental health experts and psychologists who understand the psychology of addiction, who understand the psychology of crime, instead of taking a punitive and reactionary idea of punishing them, we are able to address these problems at the root and ensure that these people become good people, become productive members of society, and ensure that their rights are taken care of before they are entered in this world of desperation that causes crime in the first place. And then that brings me on to my third clash, which is the sense of responsibility. Opposition claims that these experts will not be incentivized to do their jobs. First of all, these politicians put in these consultants in the first place. These consultants come in with a responsibility to do it. If they do not fulfill their responsibility, politicians can easily push them out. And then the point of elitism is within these consultants. How we state that this is symmetrical, that these politicians are also elitist as well. However, when we have a diverse panel of consultants who come from all of these different backgrounds, all of these different educated fields, we have people who can give this perspective and ensure that they are not going to be ignorant, that they're able to face these complex issues without taking a huge hammer. They're able to take care of it. They're able to take a tiny pickaxe and ensure that these nuances are taken care of. And not lastly, and then the next part is the efficiency. We believe that policies are going to be made, the efficiency, the effectiveness of these policies are not going to protect everyone on their side, because they are affected by people who are easily manipulated by these ideas, by fear mongering, by misinformation, by propaganda, things that make democracy flawed on the end of the people. However, when we have educated people to be able to fact check them, people who are qualified to be able to do it, we are able to ensure the implementation of laws protect more stakeholders than in government world. We're able to make sure that disabled people are accounted for in a faster rate compared to the 10 years that they were left behind due to these outdated laws. You are able to have people on the ground, the B40s, the people in rural areas who are finally having their needs taken into account, because they have experts who have worked, they have experts like anthropologists who understand their cultures and can implement policies that respect these cultures instead of impose a solution that may not have these people at the bottom's heart. So the comparative is, in their best case, yes, it's true. People will have a voice. They will be able to get these politicians into power, but these politicians may lack the perspective to be able to ensure that these promises are manifested, that they may end up having misplaced biases that will make things worse. But in our worst case, it's true. These policies may feel forced. It may create a sense of resentment in these people at first, but once people get used to it, once this becomes status quo over time, they will get used to this culture of making sure that these politicians are fact-checked, that education in the government is important. And with that, I end my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Opposition Whip, for your speech. To proceed with the next agenda, we will now continue our debate session for this round with the reply speech session. The reply speech shall be delivered first by the opposition team. Therefore, without further ado, I would like to invite Ms. Shashita to deliver her speech and conclude their debate. Please welcome.
All right, give me a minute.
Let's go, Sachita.
Okay. Let's have speech in 3, 2, 1. I'm going to structure my reply speech by highlighting two things. Firstly, 3 reasons as to why we win, and 3 reasons as to why government loses. Firstly, why we win. Number 1, we tell you that we have better ground level problem solving laws as an outcome. This is where we counter the perspectives and the views of politicians who are sitting on the higher ups, who are most of them elite. They do not take into consideration of the lower or middle class income groups and their specific problems that they face, meaning that they are unable to solve a lot of the problems that are not surface level, that are hard to reach because they do not have expertise in this field. Why is very important? For example, if you come up with policies to, for example, to maybe let's say the economic policy to hold a certain price of particular good. This may seem nice from surface level. Oftentimes, this might be a good that is only approachable by the elite class. It may only be used by people of certain income group, meaning the policies that you're curating, that you're asking for certain benefits, would not manifest. The first place, the people who need benefits the most are benefited. And this is happened are more likely to happen. They don't have someone to bounce the idea off each other. Second reason why we tell you that there is a low chance of swaying these laws to fit the political needs to appeal to certain people of politicians. We already tell you that when you have a consultant who is included in the law or the decision-making process of government, you can actually, reduce the hidden agenda of this politician trying to just fulfill the manifesto and trying to just create laws to pass the legislation that can only fit the political will and image, which means oftentimes when they have the sole say in legislation and they have the sole curation of this law. Yeah, it's passing or not passing is secondary. But when you're curating these laws in the first place, you include the ones that expected to appeal to a certain mass group of people that may only vote for you. This is why we think this is harmful, where a law should actually cater to a vast majority of people and not just a group of people that may vote you. Number three, we offer you a very unique benefit of diversity in a perimeter. We tell you that a group of consultants are able to give you perspectives of various income levels, various states of people, various age groups of people, various gender of people, and various intersectional perspectives of people, which means we tell you that the needs of certain people, of a large group of people, will be fulfilled by passing these laws. We can see this materialize when we talk about a lot of social laws that are being passed. We talk about a lot of feminist or women empowerment laws that are being passed. We don't just say, hey, women should go and get an education because they're supposed to. Instead, you attack the economic challenges that prevent a woman from actually getting an education, from actually preventing them from getting or moving out of their house. This is where actual lawmaking comes in, because you have to attack subsidiary problems that cause the main problems in the first place. Now, moving on to why they lose. Number one, they claim expertise. We tell you this is untrue because the symmetry of knowledge of an expert in economics versus an economic degree holder politician who's been governing is simply not symmetrical. You just cannot claim that you have enough expertise as a politician to make these laws, especially these laws are technical for the country. Economics is a base, is the backbone of a lot of countries and the way they operate. And you don't have enough nuance, enough tools, enough understanding of how certain policies or laws work, you just don't have the right to create these laws in the first place. Secondly, they claim better laws. And this is where it has been taken out very early on in my LO speech in itself. You cannot create better law in status quo as what government is defending. The status quo is letting people making bad decisions, politicians just making bad decisions to fit the current problems, like letting people withdraw as much as they want from EPF, realizing now that they don't have enough retirement fund. This is the kind of decisions that Malaysia is making by letting only politicians make these laws or passing these policies in the first place. Thirdly, inefficiency. A lot of the response coming from government is simply inefficient. They are just firefighting and nitpicking a lot of what they are saying by saying that this laws will not happen, whereas a lot of representation actually happens on outside the house process does. So for all those reasons, side with opposition.
Thank you to the representative from the opposition team for the reply speech. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Chun Kiat from the government team to proceed with the reply speech and conclude the debate. Please welcome.
Okay, in my speech, I will first tell you why the opposition case don't stand and why we win
in this debate. So first of all, we noticed that the opposition entire speech is basically just based on two metrics, which is that first, which is based on two premise, right? Which is first, you vote a politician means that you trust the appointment of the politician, and second, that the fact that there is an expert giving an effective law means the law is a good law. So we already have sufficiently rebutted this in our speech, and I'm telling you why is that so. First of all, in terms of the fact that we vote a politician means that we trust an appointment. Okay, I think we already give a lot of principal arguments in why we support democracy. Doesn't mean that we support colonialism within the democracy. We give a lot of examples in terms of how we support Najib. Doesn't mean that we support Jolo, right? So the fact that we vote a politician means it means that we trust the agenda manifesto of the politician. If the politician is going to learn the law in the way that it fits the agenda and manifesto of the politician, we tell you it's okay, it's perfect because people support it and people want it, and people need it. Right? So the second purpose in this debate is that when there is a better law, when there's going to be a better law, and it basically is good for the people. So we rebutted it in two directions. So first of all, tell you that a consultant most likely comes from a higher educated family, it most likely comes from a elite portion of society, meaning that if they are going to have all those statistics of how people are suffering, they're still going to put in their personal sentiment of the background of growing up in the elitist family and having an elitist cycle influence the law of making process in that. If in contrast, the politician is doing a kind of those statistics which the government already these politicians are more likely to answer to reflect what the people really need because these politicians have the incentive that comes which is to stay in politics, which is to get voted in to progress in the political career. In a political career. Second, we also got the entire framing of how politicians are uneducated in this kind of thing, right? In a lot of cases, politicians also have been also expert, and politicians also external expert in these academic advice. The difference in our case and the person case is this. External in our case, plays a role as a citizen. They voice out. The politician has the politician decide whether or not it fits the needs of the people. Whereas in their case, this has an overarching influence in the law-making process. They directly making favor and how politician the politician is. So why do we win this debate then? In fact, what doesn't mean a good law. Often the good law is based on compromise. It means it depends a certain voice on it. And you cannot using an example of a COVID lockdown. That's in this why do we have a law in the government? We have a few metrics that we analyze in this law. Which side have a better likelihood to reflect what the people needs. We can't obviously it's politician, right? Because we have incentives they don't have. Second of all, which side even when the law is terrible, even when the law is elitist, which side is still justified? At least on our side, we have consent to the people to vote in the politician. We have a democratic process to scrutinize the politician. People vote them in, and if the law is terrible, this is a people's own responsibility. It is a collective decision. But for this is a greater level of serious participation of public scrutiny. It's obviously the government simply because people are involved in that process. People can see what politicians are debating in the parliament itself. Then, in the end of the day, which side can change or which side can amend or punish the law if any problem arises? It's also obviously the government because people simply vote politicians out. Whereas in the opposition or the consultants still stay behind the room, influencing the politician mindset. And it just gives an illusion of that there is something going on, but in fact, the law are not reflecting what you really want. With all of this, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you to the representative from the government team for the reply speech. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now reaching the end of our session today. Congratulations and thank you to all debaters from both teams for your wonderful, informative and fruitful speech. We will now move on to the next agenda, which is the adjudicators' feedback. So, Mr. Wesley, do the adjudicators need a breakout room for a short discussion?
Yeah, can you just assign us to a room, maybe room 3.
All right.
Thanks, guys, for the debate.
Thank you guys for the debate.
And I'm sorry if I
debate.
butchered your names during the
Good.
introduction.
Good debate,
Mr.
guys.
Tanto
Great
Miss.
debate, guys.
Alright,
Okay,
sorry.
good
It's just
debate.
that I think UPM speeches are a little choppy here and there. Just that.
So is our speech choppy like throughout the entire debate?
Like,
No,
I
only
couldn't hear-
DPM.
Yeah, only DPM. Like I couldn't hear DPM's speech clearly, and I couldn't hear Duff's replies. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was going to correct this issue.
Yeah, that's the only thing. We were just guessing. But I think this is live right now. Our conversations are live, I guess.
Okay, the adjudicator comments and feedback will be maybe given in the next 5 minutes. Thank you. The adjudicators are still in discussion. Please stand by. So may all debaters turn on their camera. Oh, announcing the verdicts. Yep. Oh. May all debaters go to their respective camera, please. Miss Jachi, please. Okay, Mas Antika.
Our LO went to the washroom, but he said that we could continue that.
All right. I presume we have everyone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay lah, pretty much everyone lah. Okay, I'm gonna continue. Mainly because I'm hungry and I want lunch. Right. Okay, so my name is Wesley. Paneling alongside me were Mior and Ria. We had a very good discussion after we submitted our ballot, and I think they will have very insightful feedback for you if you are to ask for personal feedback from them. Yeah. So uh, I hear some noise. Yeah. So we came to a unanimous decision, and it's a unanimous opposition win. And the discussion went, uh, and we pretty much saw the debate along quite similar lines as well. So I'll briefly discuss what we sort of gotten from um, both sides, and then the two clashes that all of us sort of saw as well. Um, so what we got from Gov is that essentially Gov says we want the politicians to decide the fate of the people because that is democratically legitimate. If not, then the citizens will feel disengaged, and that is a harm. So it's the principle and then the harm. The other thing they sort of deal with is the idea of consent, right? Which is that the people, by voting in the politicians, they consent to the politicians, but they do not consent to people around the politicians. This is where they bring in the whole Najib and Jolo example. And we conclude this in two ways, right? Which is that the even if the policies end up failing, there is consent. And even if they fail, there is a collective responsibility. And then the other thing, which is a response that come out quite late, and also to a certain extent some kind of mechanization, which is that in terms of expertise, you can hire outside experts like professors. What we get from op is quite straightforward. I think they mainly talk about a few things, right? Like the benefits of having expertise in terms of like how you create better laws and how you can cover more grounds and stakeholders. And secondly, in terms of why having the role of the consultant instead of just having the politicians itself. It gives you check and balance in terms of having a diversity in opinion, and then being able to play devil's advocate in terms of like the viability of policy, blah 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 blah. So the clashes are twofold. I think the first clash is really democratic legitimacy, and this is the, I think, greatest push coming from Gov. I think the second thing is then outcomes. In terms of democratic legitimacy, uh, and which is that the idea that there's consent, there's democratic legitimacy, people vote you in, but not other people. And then the even is there's consent, there's collective responsibility, yada yada yada. I think this line of argumentation is contingent upon the role of consultants, right? And this requires that the role of the consultants to be highly extensive, right? To the extent that they are able to call the shots and make the decisions. And I don't think that's the case. And I think op sufficiently deals with this. So the way op deals with this is to say that at the end of the day, it is the politicians who hire these consultants, and they likely hire people who can push forward their agenda or are supportive or close to their politics, right? So I think it's likely aimed that this consent is extended to these people, and to the extent that you do not really show the difference, I'm not sure why, by virtue of them being hired by these people, this consent is not extended. And I think the next thing that they say is ultimately these politicians who hire these consultants can unhire these consultants, right? And therefore, it's the politicians who then make the final decisions. So, in light of this, I don't think the role of the consultants as we get from Gov is sufficient to prove that there is a harm to democratic legitimacy, in the sense that yeah, they consult, but at the end of the day they don't call the final shot. So it doesn't really harm democratic legitimacy. Next, in terms of outcome, and this is roughly two things, right? The first is expertise and the outcomes that come from expertise. It is the op contention that politicians do not need qualifications to be politicians, right? They can just be voted in. Whereas experts have qualification, like by virtue of being experts, like they have to have qualifications. The Gulf response that we get is, which comes from Gulf Whip, is that politicians can be qualified as well. And I think this is quite an insufficient response, which is that, yeah, you can be qualified, but you don't have to be, versus consultants, which by virtue have qualifications. And the other thing that they do say in terms of expertise is that um, these consultants, though they may have a lot of expertise in their field, they have no experience in lawmaking. The reason why this was given less credit than the contention that from OP that consultants have expertise that can contribute to lawmaking process is that I'm not sure what the lawmaking process entails, such that you need extensive experience in order to be able to contribute. Whereas from OP, what we do get is like the level of expertise in several fields, to the extent that it contributes to, you know, whether the policy can be viable, what are the outcomes, what are the impacts, long-term impacts on like various stakeholders, all these things. So yeah, I'm likely more likely to buy the contention coming from opposition and the characterization as well. The second response in terms of this that I do get from Gov is that you can get outside experts, for example, university professors. And I think this is quite soft, right? And I think this like borders on yeah, it's just really soft, right? And I'm not really sure what the distinction is between hiring an outside university professor to comment or whatever and consultants. Um, so yeah, it's quite soft, and I think it is somewhat inconsistent. Um, and what this means is, I think op material and expertise means, you know, the outcomes that they claim are likely to be true, right? Such as the ability to fact check, the ability to hold the politicians accountable for their policies, the policies become more viable, they can play devil's advocate, yada yada yada. Um, and and that brings me to this other critique, right? That one of the panelists brought up, which is that I think a lot of it suffers because Gulf case is quite unclear on what is the role of a consultant, what do they specifically do, and the role as it evolves, the role sort of evolves from speech to speech, which then affects the credibility and the persuasiveness of the arguments. But lastly, let's talk about the other outcome that Gav discussed, which is that people becoming disengaged with politics as a result of lack of political legitimacy because they don't trust, right? I think this is contingent upon Gav proving the lack of democratic legitimacy. And as a result of the previous discussion, I don't think it was sufficient. And therefore, I also don't think it's likely that people will be disengaged from politics. So yeah, as a result of these things, we collectively, unanimously gave it to opposition. Yeah. Any questions? Okay.
Okay.
No. All right.
Okay, thank you to all adjudicators for your verdicts and feedback. We hope that all debaters will take note of the comments given to improve themselves in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to the photography session, and therefore, to all adjudicators and debaters, please kindly turn on your camera so that we can proceed with the photography session. Okay, all right, everyone, turn on your camera. Okay, in 3, wait. Okay, in 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your cooperation and for your time spent here in this debate round. I will now proceed with the interview session with any representative from the government team. Therefore, I would like to ask any representative from the government team to stay in this meeting room. In the meantime, other debaters and all adjudicators may dismiss the room. Thank you so much, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay. Where is the representative from the government team? Who will it be? Oh. Okay, Miss Jia.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're the one. Okay. So, wait. It's okay. It's already in a informal session already. So just chill. I'm gonna pin your camera. Okay, and I will start recording, because this is interview will be recorded. Okay, just chill only. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Oh, wait. Okay. Okay. Congratulations on completing the round, and thank you for volunteering yourself for this interview. First of all, Miss Jia, and I'm sorry for butchering the Miss and Mister in the introduction. So
Yeah,
actually,
no worries.
it's okay. So where are you from?
As in university?
No, where are you from? Where are you born? Where are you born?
Penang.
Oh, Penang girl. Okay. So I have a set of questions here. There's some 4 questions. So the first one is, from your point of view, what do you think about the motion for this round?
Give me 1 second. I need
Yeah,
to.
sure. Take your time.
Okay, so this has opposed the practice of government hiring consultant in the lawmaking process. I feel like it's pretty relevant with the world that we live in because if I'm not mistaken, there are some government outside that really do engage with consultant. So it's pretty like a pretty relevant thing to discuss actually, because to discuss about it would mean that we're thinking if this is also suitable for Malaysia and etc. So although that in a debate there's no right and wrong, but it's going to be like a good discussion, especially for people to listen to and then to actually see the pro and cons between both sides.
Yeah, true. Okay. And then, are there any challenges that you face while debating in a virtual environment?
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, of course. We can see a lot.
Um, I feel like, especially in physical sessions, you would be
Yeah.
in a debating mood easier. And when in the mood, you kind of like think faster and you'll be able to formulate and structure a sentence better. But in an online method, it just kind of lack that forms of like competitiveness in the environment itself. It's not that tense.
Yeah.
Plus, I think one of my teammates, he was facing some technical issues as well. His line was breaking here and there.
Yeah.
So
True.
it kind of just harms the quality of the debate, I'd say, when you can't really listen to whatever your teammate's saying or when the opposition team is saying.
Yeah, and do you have any opinions on the Royal 2023?
Definitely make it physical.
Yeah, I agree on that. Oh my God, I'm supposed to be unbiased. Okay, wait. And give 3 words. You have 3 words to describe Royal 2023. What would it be? Make it physical.
3 words. Yeah,
3
make
words.
it physical.
Physical, yeah. Okay lah, thank you, Miss Jicha, and congratulations for the round, and thank you for volunteering yourself for the interview. And that's it. Goodbye.
All right, bye.
Bye.